Welcome to the Hall of Echoes of the Grand Library of the city of Zahra. This is where reports arrive of discoveries, expeditions, and events already shaping the world. Some are confirmed, others survive only through witness. I am Idris Nahir, Keeper of Echoes. I mark what is known and I name what is uncertain, because silence is also a choice. These are the matters before Zahra. When we last spoke, I informed you all of the recovery of Ramza al-Shakir. Now I understand you're all eager for information. This past week has been utterly void of it. But I, as always, have exciting news to share. Today we will begin uncovering the truth of what happened to Ramza, at least with the little information we've received. The city has been abuzz with the news of her safe return to her father. With no new information presented, many of the different peoples have been searching far and wide for information of their own. But I dare say, even the wormlings in the souks have had hardly a morsel of information to trade. And in its own way, this peculiar event has brought our city together. All peoples, even those who have sworn to hate one another, have come together for the common cause of understanding what happened. The city has been so alight with curiosity about Ramza that not much else has been going on. All is quiet in the streets of Zahra, which is a sentence I never quite thought I'd hear, so it brings me great pleasure to speak it aloud in spite of the circumstances. Before I delve into the documents I'll be reading to you today, I'll give you an update on Ramza. It's come to my attention that she has not spoken a word since arriving home. Her father has kept her hidden away and shrouded, the finest medics and healers in the city tending to her every need, but she does not appear to be wounded in any way. However, she has scarcely uttered a syllable. The true reason behind her silence is unknown, but perhaps the documents I'll be reading here today might give some manner of explanation. The documents I have are of great import right now. Last week, we learned of the heirs of the new dawn, and this week we will be learning more. Yes, it is true. The secretive people that has been telling refugees to die with their lands is somehow involved with Ramza. The documents I'll be reading to you today have been procured through quite subversive means. I dare say I had quite a time reading them. It's been a while since I've read such an adventurous tale taking place within the walls of our great city. The names of the Adder's Hand and Banu Asrar members who have handed me these documents have been changed and their titles removed to protect their privacy. After all, with these new people burgeoning in the underbelly of our city, we must protect those brave enough to fight against them. Now, without further ado, let us begin. From the Journal of Ada of the Adder's Hand. Days have passed since Ramza al-Shakir has returned home. I, alongside everyone else from the city, have been immensely curious about what happened with her. After all, it's not every day that a wealthy patriarch's daughter goes missing. And usually when that does happen, a ransom note is not far away. But for her to disappear without any warning, without any trace, with no motivation, was unimaginable. The fact that it happened alongside others in the city is suspicious, to say the least. I, like many in the city, have been waiting eagerly for any information about what happened, but it does not seem like it will be coming anytime soon. The Adder's Hand normally does not insert itself in matters like these. Our main priority is to ensure that refugees are not being taken advantage of by having their items and relics pilfered. But in the service of protecting refugees, I believe this is our concern. If someone as high-ranking as Ramza goes missing, that could mean the refugees are at risk. They are vulnerable within our city, and there are not many kinfolk actually protecting them. Too many kinfolk believe that they are a blight, a weakness born out of kindness. If we are to protect the refugees, we need to figure out what happened with Ramza. I intend to do that. I reached out to Mustafa of the Banu Asrar for his aid. I've worked with him before in the past and he's always proved to be an adept thief. If I'm going to get any information, I'm not going to get it through traditional means. He was immediately aligned with me when I broached the subject of uncovering the truth. If I am worried about refugees going missing, he is also worried about members of the Banu Asrar disappearing. Most of them live in poverty and turn to crime as a means to protect themselves. They are just as vulnerable. We met briefly before establishing our plan. One reason I wanted to work with Mustafa specifically is because of his penchant for forensic occultism. To be a thief in this city, you have to be able to cover your tracks. So he has studied it in great detail to make sure he can do that. I had to call in a few favors to gain access to the Orrery of Insight. For most peoples in this city, if you are a known Adder's Hand member, they want you as far away from their homes and headquarters as possible. However, the kinfolk of this city are driven mad by relics every day. While we do want to return all the relics we can to their rightful owners, we occasionally use them as bargaining chips for the greater good. This seems to be one of those times. With a relic traded, Mustafa and I were led into the orrery after sunset when all of the other Royal Society members had either gone home for the night or moved toward the observatory to study the stars. I did not quite know what we were looking for. Ramza had not yet returned to the Orrery of Insight since being found, but Mustafa seemed to have a clear idea of what would help him figure out where she was. I followed him, mostly watching our tracks as he dug through records for information about books that Ramza had read and articles she had written. After uncovering a series of tomes she had collected about the city of Brightwater, he went to the library to find them. I pulled books from the shelves as Mustafa began his work. He studied each one carefully in search of some sort of evidence he could use for humoric resonance. It did not take him long to find a fallen hair in one of the tomes that he was able to identify as Ramza's. Now all we have to do is wait for the humoric resonance profile to be created. Mustafa swears he has a plan to enact after that. I hope he's right. Time is not on our side right now, and I want to uncover the truth as soon as possible. Mustafa of the Banu Asrar. I was not surprised when I got the humoric resonance profile back to see that it was Ramza's hair. That was the easy part of my plan. The more difficult part was definitely going to be tracking down where she had been throughout the city using the profile. I sent for Ada as soon as I had it. I understand that she is impatient to find information. When she arrived at my home, I explained to her what I did and what my plan is in the future. These plans were definitely untraditional, and seeing the look on her face was entertaining. Years ago, when I was nothing but a petty thief stealing loaves of bread to sustain myself, I met a kinfolk who used to investigate crimes with the Veiled Chamber. He told me how they would track criminals using a mixture of forensic occultism and grammaturgy. Of course, he would not have shared this information with me had the Veiled Chamber not turned on him, but that's a story for another day. He told me everything I know. He taught me how to be a better thief, how to avoid detection, and how to blend in among the aristocracy. He even gave me the names of some of his enemies to steal from. As it turns out, he was one of the most profitable friends I ever made. But right now, the grammaturgy he taught me to track down a person's whereabouts is exceedingly useful. Using Ramza's humoric resonance profile, I can create a chain. I will have a path leading me towards where she currently is, and where she has been in any place that her humoric resonance might still linger. Of course, she is a daughter of the city. It is expected that she would leave traces of herself anywhere she goes. But I imagine things like rain and wind would carry those off. It might be a long shot, but there might still be some traces of her lingering around the city around the time she was found. If we can find those, then we can figure out where she was. That is the most important step we need to take care of. Ada did not want to waste any time. The moment I told her about the plan, she wanted me to use it so we could figure out where to go. So we did. As soon as I finished etching the glyph, I felt the chain tugging me in the direction I needed to go. The first place it led us was to the home of Basim al-Shakir, where we already knew Ramza to be staying. It seemed like it might be a dead end at first, but after adjusting the chain, I found traces of Ramza leading away. We were able to follow small pieces of lingering hair and fingerprints that led us throughout the city. As expected, it was a difficult trail to follow. It seemed for a while like it would lead us nowhere. But then a pattern emerged. I could tell the difference between the very old traces and those which seemed more new. The newer traces led us to the Naj al-Rumuz. The ancient fortress Dir al-Nar was glowing with traces of her. Both Ada and myself were perplexed. To our knowledge, the Dir al-Nar had not been used in ages. It was a fortress during the Rebellion War and has since remained empty. So what would Ramza be doing there? The resonance was everywhere too. It seemed recent. Without a doubt, we knew she had been there. It was where we'd finally get the answers everyone in the city was looking for. I was prepared to go right in to investigate, but Ada stopped me. She wanted to watch it for a while, get an idea of what might be waiting for us inside, so we made a plan to come back the next day, both of us taking turns hiding out and watching the fortress. Ada took the first watch, and I left to get some rest. I'll see her in the morning to begin my watch. If everything goes smoothly, we'll go inside as soon as light falls. From the Journal of Ada of the Other's Hand. My time spent watching over the fortress during the night was uneventful. No kinfolk came or went. I don't know exactly what I was expecting. But I felt the disappointment settle in my chest when Mustafa came back in the morning. We swapped places and I went home, struggling to get any rest at all. I was practically counting the hours until I could meet back up with him. When I finally did, it seemed he had more fruitful time than I did. He did not see much, but he did see one kinfolk walking out of the fortress. They were far away, so he did not get a good look, but he watched them do something with a glyph. That was information enough for us to know the fortress is warded. Whatever is going on in there, kinfolk are trying to hide and protect it. We decided that we would attempt to get inside. Ramza was there after all. Before doing that, he used the same grammaturgy he did last night to find traces of her humoric resonance, and we cautiously approached the entrance. Using a bit of grammaturgy, we discovered that there were many glyphs protecting the entrance. From my knowledge, it seemed they had particular passphrases, and kinfolk who were allowed to move freely, others would be thwarted at any attempt. Disabling each glyph was challenging. They were each meticulously drawn in, some of which were things I had never seen before. I had to work quickly because we did not know how much time we had. Anyone else could have left the fortress at any moment, and the last thing we needed was to be caught trying to get information. When every one of them was removed, we went inside. The fortress itself was astronomical. I had never been inside, and frankly had never had the urge to go. But seeing the vastness of it all steeled my heart for a moment. My first thought was that it was a shame for all of this space to be wasted. It could be used for so many helpful things. But then it occurred to me that perhaps there was a reason it had not been approved for use for something like refugee housing. We had no idea how many kinfolk might be inside, so we moved as quietly as possible. I drew glyphs on both of our wrists before moving that would quiet our steps. The two of us would need to use as much stealth as possible in order to go undetected. Torches were lit along the walls, but sparsely enough that long shadows were cast. Mustafa and I did our best to stay hidden in the darkness. We could hear footsteps and voices echoing through the cavernous halls. We had no idea how many kinfolk were there. With every step we took, I felt my heart in my throat, and I moved like we could be caught at any moment. Mustafa led the way because he was following the traces of Ramza's whereabouts. They were everywhere. The first place it led us was to a room that appeared to be a barracks of some sort. It was empty inside when we approached. We moved quickly in search of anything that might belong to her. We found a bed that Mustafa said was most definitely hers. At the foot of the bed was a trunk that had been completely emptied. Not so much as a ribbon was left behind, but it was obvious to him that she had been the one to use it. We searched the rest of the room as quickly as we could before anybody returned. We were looking for some sort of information about what this was, and we found it. We found a handwritten pamphlet that explains who the kinfolk staying in the fortress were. The heirs of the new dawn. I did not have a chance to read over the pamphlet at the time, but even scanning the page before pocketing it sent a chill through me. Whoever was there did not have good intentions. They were the ones who were telling the refugees to die with their lands. I realized that we were in the den of monsters we had been hearing so much about. I wanted to leave after that, but Mustafa insisted there were still many places where her humoric resonance was prevalent. There had to be some trace of her that gave some explanation for how she got there. As we were debating, we heard footsteps approaching the room. Both of us, in our panic, rushed to hide. I climbed inside of Ramza's empty trunk and closed in while Mustafa hid under a bed. Two kinfolk walked into the room laughing. There was a sense of merriment between them as they spoke about someone they called Luminary al-Atar. I did not know what that meant, but I registered that name. Both of them seemed to be eager to be in their presence. One, someone who sounded like a young woman, was supposed to meet him in his office in the morning. She thought she was ready to be promoted. The other, a man, was excited for her. He joined the people after her, and she's been something of a mentor to him. Through their conversation, it became clear that this luminary al-Atar was the leader. They were the one that kinfolk looked up to. They were the head of the snake. I waited patiently for them to leave, but they never did. I listened as both of them settled in for the night. They climbed in their beds and closed their eyes. I thought I would be trapped in that trunk until morning, which would be disastrous. I knew that eventually someone would return to the fortress and realize the glyphs at the entrance were disabled. As soon as they noticed that, they would all be aware that they had an enemy amongst them. But thankfully, the trunk opened after a while. My heart sank to my stomach thinking someone might have caught me, but seeing Mustafa's face was a relief. He helped me out of the trunk as quietly as possible, and we crept out of the room. As soon as we were in the hallway, away from the barracks, we talked about what to do next. Mustafa wanted to stay, and surprising myself, I agreed with him. I wanted to figure out who the luminary was. Ramza's disappearance was still of the utmost importance, but I knew that this luminary would have something to do with it. That was the information we needed. It was quiet when we went out. We did not hear laughter or smell cooking food. It seemed that everyone had gone to sleep for the night. I made a mental map of every corridor and room that we encountered along the way. Some were filled with sleeping kinfolk. Others were empty, but there were clear signs of life all around us. I don't know how long the heirs of the New Dawn had taken up residence within the Dir al-Nar, but if I had to guess, it had been a while. I still can't understand how nobody has noticed this. Mustafa followed the chain he created between himself and Ramza's humoric resonance. It led us all over the fortress, but one of the final places we visited, which happened to have a very strong, recent profile of her, proved to me the most useful. We approached a room overlooking what appeared to be a mess hall. The door was locked as well as protected by glyphs, but we disabled those, and Mustafa managed to pick the lock with relative ease. Once we were inside, I realized this had to be the office of the luminary. It was opulent inside, but at the same time, there was something understated about it. There's a large desk in the center of the room covered in books and papers with cushioned benches on either side. The walls were lit with torches and there were trays with candles on the desk. The room seemed important. It radiated an aura of authority while maintaining a comfort that I would not have expected. Carved into the center of a desk was a sigil I had not seen before. It was a book with a sun blazing behind it. In the space between the book and the sun was what appeared to be a storm. I quickly drew my own rendition of it to show others while Mustafa began rifling through the desk. The books on top of the desk were all about different tribes in the area. Some of the tribes had their lands completely destroyed by infection and had already come to Zahra. In fact, that's how we have created the tomes we have about most of them. Kinfolk at the library often pay handsomely for tribes to share the details of their lives in order for us to understand them better. But some of them were tribes that were still out there fighting against the signs of the old gods. These were mostly tribes that traded with the city, that interacted with us more than the ones deep within the Ascora jungle who tried to maintain their own ways of life. What struck me most about it was how there seems to be a list on the desk of different ways of appealing to each tribe. They commented on the proper things to say in order to convince them to stay with their lands. Mustafa told me that he found something. In one of the drawers of the desk was a bundle wrapped in cloth. As soon as he opened it, he found Ramza's journal. After obtaining that, we did not find anything else. We knew we had to leave. We only had a matter of time before we were caught, and we needed to create as much distance between ourselves and this fortress as possible. As we left, Mustafa did his best to cover our tracks. Seeing how he read the rooms of our presence was impressive, and I was glad I chose him of all kinfolk to accompany me. We ran into no challenges as we departed and immediately returned to his home to begin reading over what we found. It saddens me to see such a bleak future for our city if these people's words have leached themselves into the minds of so many already. Heirs of the New Dawn pamphlet penned by luminary Abdul el-Attar, Dawnbringer. To those who love Zahra, I ask you what the difference between selfishness and self-preservation is. It seems that each new day brings new kinfolk to the gates of our city. Each carries their own woes tucked into their hearts with the expectation we will fix them. They arrive exhausted from roads that have taken children from their families, mothers, fathers, and lovers alike. They tell us stories of poisoned rivers and hostile spirits, lands that no longer belong to them. They speak of this and we open our doors. We feed them, shelter them. We gather blankets from our homes to give to them. We care for their children and their elders. This is compassion, and compassion is essential to our lives. But compassion without wisdom is perhaps our greatest detriment. I ask you, how many more you think Zahra can hold? How many more mouths can be fed before we must go to bed with our own stomachs growling? The questions I ask may seem cruel, but they are necessary. Most would hear these words and assume they are hatred. I say they are concern. The peoples of this city are afraid to face the difficult truths. Our home cannot sustain the growth we see because of the displaced seeking refuge. I speak plainly because I love this city. I will fight until my dying breath to protect it. But what about the refugees? Do they not love the lands they flee? If the walls of Zahra were to be sieged tomorrow, I would fight to preserve what I can until an arrow pierces each of my lungs and stops my heart. I would not flee. I would not leave my history behind. But the refugees who have had their lands threatened daily are encouraged to flee. And to be completely honest with you all, it's not in their best interest. If the peoples of Zahra truly cared about them, would they not offer those who suffer some dignity? If you are wondering why they would not, it's because they are so intent on obtaining relics from these tribes that they don't care what becomes of them. The lands beyond Zahra are not empty. They are filled with memories and ancestors, sacred burial grounds and songs that are carried across generations. To remove themselves from these lands is to sever themselves from who they are. That is why we say they should remain. Remaining behind is not surrendering. It is not despair or sorrow. It is a purpose for them to fight. It will allow them to continue their way of life as long as possible, cherishing each moment. It will allow them to respect their ancestors and the stories of their kinfolk. Fleeing into our city means their past will be forgotten. They will be forced to assimilate into our way of life. In a generation's time, they will lose touch with who they are. What does that cost them? I see courage with standing beside your history. The heirs of the new dawn teach us that kinfolk carry a sacred responsibility to the lands that raised us. Some of these responsibilities might be heavier than others, but history remembers those who endure. Every day, Zahra becomes a graveyard. Every dying land comes here for refuge and their history dies with them. Even the mycelial gardens cannot house the memories of these sorrows. We believe there is another path. A path built on dignity and stewardship. I know that I am not alone in these thoughts. If you have felt these words in your heart, then you have found friends among us. The new dawn might rise quietly, but it still rises. Luminary Abdul al-Attar, Dawnbringer. Journal of Ramza al-Shakir, daughter of Ba'asim al-Shakir, paragon of the Royal Society, Today began like any other, but it ended on quite a peculiar note. I spent my day in the orrery of insight as I do most. Lately, I've been quite fascinated with the bright water flooding, and have been seeking information about it. So I pulled just about every tome I could and seated myself comfortably in the library for a long day of reading. At about midday, Irene walked in. It's not unusual to see her. The two of us had never been very close, but we were friendly, so I was not surprised when she sat down at my table. She began speaking with me about a new group of refugees that had come to the city. She was complaining about them, as she always tends to do. Honestly, I find it refreshing. I understand the refugees need to come to the city, but I struggle with having some sympathy for them as others might. Irena and I have always seen eye to eye about this. Of course, I believe that kinfolk should be helped, but at what cost to us? My father owns plenty of land in the city, and he makes his money renting it out to kinfolk. Lately, there have been many campaigns raised to create housing specifically for the refugees. My father has come under fire because he has refused to donate lands he's owned and operated for decades to kinfolk who would not be able to pay him for staying there. Sometimes I feel the kinfolk in this city don't see reason. They're also fixated on doing what they deem as the right thing to realize what a detriment it is to our own people. As we were speaking, she told me about these new people. She handed me a pamphlet and I read it on the spot. The Heirs of the New Dawn. Surprisingly, I agreed with most of what I read, but I was a little bit confused about how they plan to get members from different tribes to stay with their dying lands. That seemed like a foolish attempt, if anything, to me. Irena informed me that she had spoken with the man who wrote the pamphlet. She described him as very charming and warm. Seeing the words on the pamphlet, that struck me as a little odd. While I might have agreed with some points, it did not seem like the type of thing a kind-hearted kinfolk would write. Of course, she told me that if I agreed with what I read, I might consider meeting him too. I told her I was not interested. I was too busy with my work with the Royal Society to consider taking on more with these people. Being associated with something like this could have very negative consequences that I did not want to deal with. Truthfully, my distaste for the growing refugee population was much less bitter than Irena's, but Irena would not let it go. She insisted that I have to meet with him. She even said that he wants to meet with me. When I asked her about that, Irena said she had been talking to him about my father's problems with other peoples regarding his homes. The luminary was curious about my position on it all as his daughter. Irena simply would not take no for an answer, and the only way I was able to get her to leave me so I could finish reading my books was to agree. She promised to take me to him after sunset. Journal of Ramza al-Shakir, daughter of Ba'asim al-Shakir, paragon of the Royal Society. Never in my life would I imagine I'd want to join something like this, but seeing the work they've done and hearing Luminary al-Attar's plans from his own lips was illuminating. He thinks that I have potential too. It's the first time anyone has ever really told me that. Growing up in my family, I've always had a long shadow cast over me, but this could be my way of stepping out of it, forging my own destiny. He gave me an invitation to come back. I think I might take it. I might have something to offer this world after all. Journal of Ramza al-Shakir, daughter of Ba'asim al-Shakir, paragon of the Royal Society. Irena and I have been talking about joining the Heirs of the New Dawn constantly. In the few days that have passed since my meeting with the Luminary, I've replayed it in my head more times than I can count. And today is the day that I finally make something of myself. Georgios' birthday celebration is going to be the perfect distraction to leave. Of course, I cannot tell my father about this. Luminary Abdul el-Attar encouraged us not to tell anyone where we were going. That made me a bit wary at first, but then I thought about the ethos behind the people. If kinfolk knew that I was there, then it could have negative consequences for my family. On top of that, their people is working silently right now. Attention would impact that. I was invited to Georgios' dinner party alongside my family, but declined under the guise of feeling ill. My family came into my rooms as I was tucked under my blankets with my eyes closed to say goodbye. The moment they were gone, I was on my feet and grabbing the few belongings I cared to take with me. A few changes of clothes, some shoes, and a couple of books that I have been unable to part with. Irena met me at my window. She helped me climb down and we departed for the Dir al-Nar together. The entire time we walked, I felt my veins buzzing with the excitement. The adrenaline of sneaking away was intoxicating. The city streets were filled with celebration. Nobody paid us any mind. They were all too busy watching illuminated petals, street performers, and drinking. It did not hurt that the Dwarven Labor Union was on strike because of the day not being declared a holiday. Absolutely nobody cared about where I was going and who I was. We were invited into the fortress by one of the Dawnwalkers I met during my first meeting. He took us on a tour of the building alongside the others who joined the same night. There were 3 others beside me, though I hardly remember their names now. Everything happened so quickly. The food they served was spectacular. Simple, but with a rustic quality that made it feel like each bite was filled with care. Irena and I sat next to each other the entire evening. We talked constantly about everything we were leaving behind and what we were looking forward to. Luminary Abdul el-Attar came out midway through the meal and welcomed us all. He did not stay long, but he introduced himself to all of us again and told us how grateful he was that we would come to join him. After he went back into his office, each of us were led to our barracks to settle in. I was so excited about my first night that I could hardly sleep. For the first time in my life, I feel like there's a future in front of me that I have some control over. I am very eager to see where that takes me. Journal of Ramza al-Shakir, daughter of Ba'asim al-Shakir, paragon of the Royal Society. I have received news this morning that puts a weight on my chest I cannot ignore. My family is searching for me. They've deemed me missing in the city and they've hired kinfolk to try to find me. The news was given to me just as I returned from my first expedition. I was excited to tell Irena about it, but I have not had the chance. All I can think about are the uncomfortable stares I'm getting from everyone. I understand why too. Kinfolk are looking at me, and my being here is putting the entire people in danger. I had an incredible time following Dawnwalker Royce on his expedition. I spoke to refugees and tried to convince them to stay. I think I might have even been convincing to some. As it turns out, there's a very handsome reward on my head. Posters with my face drawn on them have been plastered all over the city, and different kinfolk from all walks of life are trying to claim the reward. Irena pulled me aside and told me that someone recognized me too. one of the tribe members that I had spoken to. They were in the midst of leaving their lands when we arrived, so they made it back to the city before us and told someone they recognized me. It makes me sick to think that I failed in my mission so badly that not only they left, but they saw my face and realized that I am a wanted kinfolk. I had only been back in the barracks for a few hours when Don Walker Royce knocked on the door for me. He told me that luminary Abdul el-Attar wanted to speak with me. I knew right away what I was going to hear, but I did not want to accept it. The short amount of time I have spent with the heirs of the New Dawn has been incredible, and I feel like I am at home for the first time. The thought of losing it makes me feel weak. It was my first time in the luminary's office. When we met first, we were walking through the halls and speaking. But being in the office feels final somehow. I know that to bring me here must mean something serious is on his mind. Of course, when he sat me down, he confirmed that for me. I felt my heart ripping into pieces as he spoke. Being there was too dangerous. They worked hard to keep their people a secret, and if kinfolk are looking for me, they're bound to find me here. I was crying on the spot. Luminary Abdul el-Attar reached across the desk and held my hand as he told me I would not be able to stay any longer. He told me that he was sorry, but it was what he had to do to protect everyone else who had joined their ranks. To protect the mission that I had so fiercely wanted to be part of. He comforted me while I lost control of myself. I felt like I belonged, like I found a sliver of life that I could look forward to. Then, in a moment's notice, all of it was taken away from me. All because of my family put posters up. I was angry, sad, hurt. I felt a wide range of emotions just in the minutes it took for me to stop crying. Luminary told me that it did not have to be the end. Of course I did not want it to be. I vowed to him that I would do everything in my power to uphold his mission. I planned to do just that. I have just packed my belongings, and Luminary Abdul el-Attar has given me a few moments to write down my thoughts and say goodbye to everyone before Don Walker Royce takes me to the market to return home. I am going to miss this place. My time here has been cut short, but I'll never forget it, and I hope that they succeed in their mission. Best of luck to you all. From the Journal of Mustafa of the Banu Asrar. After reading the journals, Ada and I were silent. There were so many missing pages, so much information we did not have. Both of our minds were wandering aimlessly, trying to fill the gaps. The pamphlet, I think, was one of the most disheartening parts to read. An entire people growing right before our eyes, dedicated to the death of refugees. I don't think there is an easier way to put it. Their goal is to see all of the refugees who come to the city dead. They may not be targeting them in the streets and trying to strip them of their few meager belongings they have, but how far away are they from that? To go to different lands to convince kinfolk to die is unthinkable to me. Even more so that someone like Ramza al-Shakir has gotten involved in this. I did not know her at all before she disappeared, but stories about her have circulated through the city. She was quiet and well-read, highly educated. How could she be swayed into something like this? That is a true testament to the power of Luminary Abdul el-Attar. I was hoping to find some information that might lead to the other missing kinfolk too. The names were taken out of the journal. I feel confident when I say they are just as involved as Ramza. After all, When she arrived on the night of Yorgios' birthday, 3 others were with her. I bet every scarab shell in my pocket it was them. Ada is distraught because she realizes the reach of these people is quite deep. After all, Ramza was recruited by a member of the Royal Society. I cannot help wondering if they might still be on the streets trying to recruit more. And if the Royal Society has been infiltrated by these people, who's to say the Banu Asrar has not? The Veiled Chamber. Anyone who holds a scarab shell's worth of power in this city could be corrupted. What troubles me the most is that the sentiment of these people might actually appeal to a lot of them. The refugee crisis is all kinfolk can speak about on most days. If I know one thing, it's that we need to protect them. The heirs of the New Dawn might be right that there is value in staying with their lands. They might not lose the culture they've lived with their entire lives, but these things can be rebuilt. Starting over somewhere that promises you life is not giving up. I cannot think of anything more difficult than giving up your entire life and taking on a new one. Luminary Abdul al-Attar does not seem to look at it that way though. Ada and I are in agreement that we're going to hand these documents over to the library. Nobody else knows that we've recovered any part of Ramza's journals. Right now, she probably still has not said a word about it. She is probably at home trying to think about ways she can proliferate this heinous message using her rank. We will not let that happen. Every single kinfolk that listens to her speak will know that she was indoctrinated into these people and is doing their bidding. Nobody is going to trust a word that passes her lips because they know she has ulterior motives. It might be the only thing we can do to bring an end to this. And there it is. We've heard whispers of the heirs of the New Dawn over recent weeks. Refugees have informed us that kinfolk have come to their lands and tried to convince them to stay. Now we know more about them, I feel more troubled than ever. These heretics have grown confident right under our noses. They've created doctrines and ethos without any of us opening our eyes. What harm has been done in our time of blindness? Ramza was only with these people for a short time, and her mind has been completely corrupted by them. So much so that she still has not uttered a single word. Almost like she has been traumatized by existing in the real world once again. And I agree with the brave kinfolk who have handed these journals over to us. It's deeply unnerving to know that anyone around us might be involved. Family members, friends, colleagues. Any one of them could have a secret life involved with these people. I am an optimist at heart, even in the face of great trouble. I know many in the city are perturbed by the amount of refugees seeking shelter here, but I think I speak for a majority of us when I say they are welcome. They provide value to our city that is almost incomprehensible. We get to learn of their stories and their histories, and they provide so much color to our lives. Trying to convince them to stay away should be deemed a crime. Protecting them is important. We cannot allow these people to convince them to die. I, for one, will do everything in my power to make sure they're stopped. This account is now entered into the record of the Hall of Echoes. Some of what you have heard tonight is confirmed. Some remains disputed. All of it has been preserved because silence too alters the future. Yet what reaches the Hall of Echoes is only part of the story. Beyond these public accounts, private conversations continue among those who keep watch over Zahra's future. Those who wish to step beyond the gallery may join these conversations through the library's public ledger at patreon.com/Echoes of Aporia. Choose your place among Zahra's many peoples. Hear what the public is not meant to hear. Take part in the conversations that shape which stories endure and which are forgotten. Notes from these symposiums and information about our world can be found in the realms of Instagram, Facebook, and Blue Sky. And if this account proves worth remembering, carry it with you. Share it with others. Repeat it faithfully where knowledge is needed. The hall exists so that truth may travel further than silence. I am Idris Nahir, Keeper of Echoes for the Library of Zahra.
No return, no brave stay, no new homes where third sides play, no great heroes, no last stand. Leave the place, take who you can. First you watch and second you go. Third you never choose to know. The world warns soft before it screams. It eats the bold who miss the seams. Those who listen live and tell songs of places that fell to hell.